This is Jimmy, our 1995 Mustang 5.0, except for the fact that it now has a Honda K24 in it, and in this video, we're going to attempt to start it for the very first time. We've already managed to make the stock Ford T5 transmission to the K-Series motor, got it all situated in the engine bay, and last but not least, we mounted a turbo right up front, which means we can finally move on to the other stuff, like our intake manifold, because well, this front wheel drive manifold is not gonna work, which of course is gonna work really well once we fully upgrade our fuel system. And to control all of that, we're gonna be running a standalone ECU, which is only going to work after we deal with everyone's favorite, wiring. And to top it all off, we gotta whip up a cooling system.
And the first place we're gonna start is our intake. So this is a Skunk 2 style intake for front wheel drive application, and obviously it's putting the throttle body straight into the cab. Fortunately, this is a 2-piece intake, so we're gonna unbolt the tat here and hopefully be able to flip it around, and then we'll see where it puts our throttle body. Okay, well, so it flipped around fine, but we are running into a problem with this bracket, and we have a secondary problem that we're gonna add, because we wanna keep power steering, and we wanna keep it in the original location that it was on the Honda, so we don't have to buy a adapter kit or anything. We can just make it work with the intake. But yeah, that's not gonna work at all.
3 days later.
All right, spent some time catting up a little spacer, so this should get us where we want to be in terms of the throttle body placement. So let's get this mounted on here. So this is just gonna take up the space between the original plenum and the intake and give us you know, an angle to that top cover. That way the throttle body will point away from the power steering pump and put it in that big area we have right there. All right, this guy should just go on here.
Oh, well, that's way better.
Yeah, okay. Still kind of pointed.
It does, yeah.
Get the throttle body. So we're just using, I think this is a RSX throttle body.
70 millimeters?
Yeah, 70 millimeter throttle body. Oh, this fits. So the IAC port is here. So this needs to go this way. That's not gonna work.
So we need more angle.
We need more, or we need to flip this, right? We want, because we don't want this here, we want it on this side.
Yeah, this would be ideal. Now you go straight. This is the throttle cable from the Mustang, so ideally it just runs right onto the throttle body there.
So we're gonna have to flip this. So I think what we're gonna do is just redesign this whole top hat, make basically a new one of these.
Yeah, I mean, it just doesn't make sense to print something or have something machined to space this off. Still most likely have to cut this off, re-weld it.
Yeah.
If we can, and we can, let's just do our own top hat and print it.
So let's go ahead and CAD some up, 3D print it so we know it's right, and then we'll figure out what to do. So this was the old thing we had before, and we went ahead and made this test piece, and you can see it's all gonna be one piece. It's gonna look way cooler, and obviously the angle was changed so we can correct the throttle body mounting, flip the pattern so now the throttle body will mount the other way. And yeah, this is just gonna look way more sick in the engine bay, hopefully. So we know the design is good. We're gonna go ahead and print it up fully in some carbon fiber material, because it's probably gonna be how we start the engine. But in the meantime, while this is printing, we're gonna go ahead and work on wiring now. Oh, ooh, I got a delivery. And I've been waiting for this one. You guys know I'm all about dialing things in myself. And turns out, I treat my lawn the same way now. I've been using Sunday for my DIY lawn care, and it's foolproof. You go to getsunday.com, put in your address, and they build a custom lawn plan based on your soil and climate. And it gets shipped free straight to your door. Your plan gets even more fine-tuned with the full soil analysis kit. You take some samples, send them in, and they analyze your soil to dial in your plan. These nutrient pouches are the heart of the system. They use powerful ingredients backed by plant science and no harsh chemicals. Just hook it up to the hose and spray. That's it, no guesswork. My lawn is cared for and ready for spring, and I spent way less time messing with the yard and way more time in the garage. If you care for your lawn as much as you care for your cars, you'll want to give Sunday a shot. Get 30% off your first lawn care plan with code BUILDIT30 at getsunday.com/buildit. That's code BUILDIT30 for 30% off your first lawn care plan. Thank you to Sunday for making my lawn care stress-free, because I have a K-swapped Mustang I need to hear running.
So we got this tucked wiring harness for a K series, which is nice because it has all the plugs and everything ready to go for the engine. But we have to decode this entire harness and repin most of these wires. Step number one is find every single one of those connectors and figure out where they belong here, because they reuse the same colors in the whole harness. And we have no idea what pink is what pink. So let's get the good old multimeter and start poking around.
So we went through the whole harness and pinned out each of the connectors, so now we know where each wire is going to and what it goes to. Now the next step is going to be going through the fuse box. So this will be to supplement the original fuse box in the car, because we got to add a few things. To get this fuse box to work, the first thing we need to do is figure out where we're going to pull an ignition source from. In the stock car, we think we found where the ignition source is coming from. We got to put a battery in here and just test it to make sure before we go cutting stuff. So we're going to turn the key on, and this should light up if we read it right.
Ready?
Yep.
Here we go.
Oh, there we go.
Alrighty. Found it.
Cut that one.
Since we had identified each and every single wire on this harness, we were able to start tearing into it and modifying it for our application. This would have been much faster with a simple wiring diagram and color-coded wires, but I suppose you get what you pay for. Alright, harness is now all pinned out. We know exactly what each wire is going for. We also added a couple more connectors for some new sensors we're going to be running. So basically now it's time to head this over to the engine bay and start laying out all the wiring. All right, so we got everything roughly laid out. It looks like a mess, I know, but trust the process. We have everything where we think it's gonna go, and now basically we know that this is the bundle that has to go in the cabin. We have plenty of length for that, so that's good. And this is the harness or the bundle that has to go into the new fuse box we're gonna wire up. So basically now what we have to do is figure out where exactly on the dash we have to go through. And in order to go through the dash, we're going to use the exact same bulkhead connectors that we used on the Lincoln build. So one is going to stay on the dash, and it's going to connect to the harness onto the ECU. And this side is just going to be able to get disconnected. So whenever we have to drop the subframe, the engine, whatever, everything else can stay on the car. Makes it much easier to work on. So let's start cutting things up and connect all the bulkheads.
So the plan is to get the bulkheads in this area somewhere to pass through to the inside, but obviously on the inside we still got our dash in place. So my plan is here to get the dash out and see what's behind there. Hopefully it doesn't get into anything. So let's go ahead and start ripping out this interior. This is the steering shaft that goes from the column to the rack, and we always had play in the steering wheel, and this is where it's coming from. So we're gonna have to get a new one of these. So now we got to go through the harness, cut each wire where it's going to pass through the firewall, and then install our bulkhead. Crimp on all the ends, so a lot of crimping to do. You ready? It took an entire day to finish these up, but boy is it satisfying when you connect the two halves together and everything works. Or so I thought. With the crimping out of the way, I went ahead and grabbed another set of bulkheads to use as templates and mark where I needed to drill and cut the firewall. But as I tried to feed the harness through, I realized the ECU connector didn't actually fit in the hole, which meant I had to de-pin the connector before passing the harness through. Several pins later, I got both harnesses through and bolted to the firewall. That's about as legit as it gets. Alright, now that we got the bulkhead put in and we know where it's going to go, those are all the signals to the ECU inside the car. Now we have to mount the power side, so we're going to be using this fuse box. It's got 6 relays in here, and we got to mount this somewhere for all the power to go to, like injectors, coils, fuel pump, all that stuff. So I'm thinking we're going to place this down here next to the other fuse box. Should look good sitting here. Battery goes there. Looks like we fit everything we need. So I'm going to make up a metal plate here to mount this to, and then we can wire up this harness to all the power wires we need on the engine harness and everything. So I got the engine pulled out so I can clean up the engine bay and pressure wash everything, and it's much cleaner in here. The engine is on the table here because I was going to do all the wiring, so there's a few things we need to do. We need to figure out how we're going to restrain this to the engine and keep it from hitting anything. Obviously we got our plastic manifold here that we made up, but we did forget one thing while making that, and that's the alternator. So I put the alternator on, and now this hits the IAC, hits the alternator, and it won't line up with the bolt holes. So we got 2 options I see right now. We can just delete the IAC, but I don't want to do that. I want it to start up like a normal car when it's cold and just idle nice. I think I want to try to figure out if we can flip this around. So we got it flipped around. So now the throttle body will fit like it's supposed to, and we have clearance to the alternator. The problem is that this has like 3 chambers inside, so you can't just flip it and work. When you're not pressing the accelerator pedal, the throttle blade is basically completely closed. That means very little air can get into the engine, but the engine still needs air to stay running. The IAC valve lets a small, controlled amount of air bypass the closed throttle blade and keeps the engine idling at a steady target RPM. Think of it like a tiny adjustable air leak that the car's computer controls on purpose. So here you can see inside the IAC, these 2 chambers allow air to flow, controlled by that motor in there. And then this is just for coolant, so when you flip it around, it kind of doesn't hit the 3 chambers the right way. But I think if I drill up in this area, I could block this off and make the air go all the way around, and then open up this wall, and it should work. All right, and I think we got it. So air, I drilled that hole there. Air will come up through there and then go through that channel I just ground down and then hit the valve. And then when the valve opens, it'll allow air to go into that hole and into the throttle body. So all I need to do is plug this hole. So I'm just gonna tap in and stick a plug in there. And now we can flip our IAC. It's always these little things that get you that you don't know until you start putting everything together. So one thing down, let's keep going. All right, now that we got the wiring done, we can move on to getting the flywheel and starter all mounted up. So here I'm bolting up the starter. We had to do a little bit of grinding and clearancing to the block to get it to fit. but we got it fitting. So now the starter's in place. We can move on to putting the flywheel on. And to do that, we got the adapter here. So this will bolt on, sorry, wrong one. So this will bolt on to the crank. There's specific flywheel bolts for automatic versus manual, and you can see these are AT. We're just gonna reuse these for right now. We're only gonna start it, so we don't need to really torque it down. Before we could even touch the flywheel, we had to make sure the starter would clear the T5 bell housing. And it definitely didn't. So we marked the spot and ground the bell housing until the starter gear could fully extend. With that handled, we bolted up the flywheel and everything looked perfect, until we tried to mount the bell housing to the engine. That's when we realized we missed one major detail. This kit uses an 11-inch flywheel, but the factory 50 T5 bell housing is made for a 10.5-inch flywheel. Luckily, the T5 bell housing from the 3.8 V6 is designed for the larger flywheel and bolts right onto our transmission. We sourced one, swapped it on, and not only did it fit perfectly, it didn't even need any grinding for the starter. If you're doing this swap, this is 100% the bell housing to use. So we got the bell housing mounted onto our plate, but there's one check we need to do before we actually send this thing. Now, this is probably a little more down the road when we actually go to drive it, but what we need to check is to make sure the bell housing, the center of the bell housing lines up with the center of the crank. And the reason you need to do this is you want to make sure your input shaft is correctly aligned with the crankshaft, because if you don't, it'll cause vibration, wear on the clutch, and a whole bunch of bad things. So I'm going to use this magnetic base dial indicator, and I'm going to stick it directly to the flywheel, and then we'll have the crankshaft spin, and as it's spinning, the dial indicator will ride on this ring in the bell housing, and we'll be able to watch to see if there's a high or low spot. And the goal is basically to get it as close to zero. We want to be around 5,000. You can see right there, that line. This thing is shifted 65,000 too low, so that's not good because we need,
I mean, you
10.
need to be within, yeah.
And it was saying 5,000 if we
I mean, most of those
for high RPM, because we're going to rev this thing.
Yeah, I mean, so the way to fix this normally is using offset pins, the dowel pins that locate your bell housing to the block, but those usually come in like 2,000 to 3,000 increments. We're not going to add 20 of those, or we're not going to find anything that's 65. The problem we're having is that this adapter plate didn't come with the correct dowel pins to locate the plate to the block. It came with dowel pins in the kit, but they don't fit on either of them. So right now we're just relying on the actual bolts to locate the plate to the block, which is not what you want at all. So we're probably gonna have to machine our own pins. We're gonna call the guy, maybe he just forgot to add them to the kit, but if not, we'll machine our own, and hopefully that will get us in the box. If not, we'll have to machine our own offset pins. But
anyway, we could throw the trans.
We can actually start the engine and not drive it without those pins. So we're just gonna go ahead and do that because we wanna hear this thing run. All right, so it's time to move on to the fuel system. We have all our stuff here. It's gonna be a very simple setup, honestly. Snake Eater hooked us up with these 1300cc injectors. This should be more than enough for everything we're doing for this build. They're also offering a 10% discount if you guys are interested. The link is gonna be in the description. To start, we're gonna use these fittings we got from K Motor to adapt our Mustang fuel lines. These are 1/4-inch return and 5/16 feet. These are just gonna slip right in and convert that to AN lines. From that, we're gonna go straight into the fuel pressure regulator. And from the fuel pressure regulator, we're gonna go into the fuel rail that goes into the injectors. Bada bing, bada boom. But before we do all that, we gotta figure out where we're going to mount this fuel pressure regulator. Thinking somewhere around here. We gotta plan that out because we have all the exhaust in this area, so we don't wanna get this too close to the exhaust. Karma must have been on our side that day because we found 2 holes on the firewall flange that aligned with the 2 mounting holes on the regulator. So all we had to do was remove the clips, mount the regulator using the 2 bolts, and it's like it was meant to be. A fuel pressure regulator's job is to maintain a consistent fuel pressure across the injectors by regulating how much fuel is returned back to the tank. What really matters isn't fuel pressure by itself. It's the difference between fuel rail pressure and manifold pressure, as this difference will effectively reduce the fuel pressure acting on your injectors. A good fuel pressure regulator adjusts 1-to-1 with boost. Pressure drops at idle under vacuum, then rises as you get into boost, keeping the injectors delivering consistent fuel and the engine safely out of the lean zone. In other words, as boost increases, the fuel pressure regulator increases fuel pressure to keep your AFR on target and keep your engine from going
in the bin.
From this point, all that's left is to install our injectors and fuel rail. Hook up the lines from the feed to the fuel rail, then out to the regulator, and finally back into the return. Tighten everything up, and we have ourselves a fuel system. All right, we're all done with fuel, so we're ready to move on to the very last thing before we can start this engine, and that's cooling. And unfortunately, there's not a kit available for a K-Series and a Mustang with hoses. There are no outlets for cooling in the front of the engine. Everything is in the back, and now it's actually one behind or underneath the intake. So we have to route some serious cooling lines to get to the front of the engine where the Mustang radiator is. And to do that, we've bought a bunch of aluminum 1.5-inch tubing. So we're going to be cutting, welding, basically making headers for cooling, which I think is kind of cool. And we did buy some generic hosing to couple some of the unions. So we're gonna be cutting those up to fit what we need. And to top it all off, we're also going to be hooking up the heater core because it's Michigan. We want to have heat at least in this car. And to make this engine bulletproof, we're going to be also cooling the turbo. Making these aluminum coolant lines was relatively easy. Just measure, cut, mock up, weld, repeat. We will need to make some clips and support brackets to hold them in place, but for a first start, this will do. One of the biggest problems of mounting a K-Series in a rear-wheel drive configuration is bleeding the cooling system. With no coolant outlets at the front of the head, air gets trapped easily. So we opted for buying a vacuum bleeder kit from our favorite hardware spot, Harbor Freight. This uses compressed air to pull vacuum on the engine, then sucks the coolant into it until it's filled with minimal chance of trapped air. All right, no leaks, fortunately, so we're done with cooling. Now we can go back all the way to the beginning with the intake. If you guys remember, we bought this intake that didn't work with the fact that we want to keep the steering pump in the stock location. So we had to redesign this, and we finally have it fresh out of the printer. We did have to do a little bit of post-processing. The quality of this wasn't really that good, but regardless, it should work. So this was printed out of PAHT carbon fiber. So we're gonna give this a shot. We added these threaded inserts just to make sure that this thing will hold up. Here where the intake mounts and where the throttle body mounts. And this is our nipple to run the map sensor. We're gonna mount this up. We're only going to run this NA. We're not gonna run any boost through this because obviously it's 3D printed. It's actually a two-piece. We have to glue it together. So we're not sure how much this is gonna hold up. But if you guys wanna see us run some boost through this, let us know and we may give it a shot.
Those inserts seem to be holding.
There it is. Carbon fiber infused nylon.
I mean, yeah, 1 week we have a custom intake now and we get to start the engine.
Yeah.
So that's pretty crazy. But now, okay, so we got that, we got the cooling. What do we got? Do we got to throw oil in it?
We gotta throw oil in it.
And then plug the computer in and make sure we don't have a
spark
fire.
plugs.
Sure we don't have a fire.
Can't have a Honda engine without your blue filter. K24-swapped Mustang, take one.
Here we go.
I'm more nervous than I was with the V10.
I don't know why. Ready?
Ready?
It's not getting fuel.
It's not getting fuel. We have fuel pressure though, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Squirt a little bit of fuel in there.
Just prime it a little
yeah,
bit?
prime it a little bit. Okay, that's one. That's two?
No, that was all of them. I went through all
that's
four.
all of them.
Yeah.
Okay,
Ready?
let's go. I wanted to add a little.
Yeah, so it needs fuel.
All right, we're gonna try a little bit of carb cleaner in the intake. Roll out the injectors or the fuel issue. Ready?
Yeah.
I want to just give it a couple.
Yeah, give it some.
Go.
Right.
Oh, I mean, it started smoking. Look, it is firing. You heard it, right?
Yeah, for a second. Put some more in. Okay.
Go. Fire extinguisher. Fire extinguisher. Fire extinguisher.
It's over there.
Here. Ready? Where is it?
Oh. So timing's off a little bit or something.
Something's off. What else is off? The f***ing intake.
Blew the weld straight up the intake.
Me.
So that's how you quickly disassemble your 3D printed intake. Just in case you were wondering how to do that, that's how you do it. But we found some issues, so pulled all the spark plugs, checked everything, and it wasn't firing on 3 and 4. Turns out we put on the cam sensors backwards. So they use 2 cam sensors on these engines, and the plug is identical.
Yeah, there's no poke yoke or anything.
There's no.
And we talked about this too.
Yeah, I know, when we were working on it, but no way to differentiate. So we had the wrong one on the wrong thing. That's what the problem was. Got that flipped around. Now we have injectors. Now we have firing on all 4 cylinders, so it should be ready to go.
Well, there was a second problem.
What was this? Oh,
The
yeah.
timing.
Yeah, that's another thing. You can see printed this degree wheel.
Degree wheel.
Turns out that Diego was looking at this line.
Yeah, I was looking at when we were doing the timing. I was looking at this mark.
Yeah.
And this is the one I should have been looking at.
So we were about 60 degrees off. So we got the timing lined up right, and luckily with our 3D printer, we were able to scrap this guy, and we already got another one on, ready to go in. So we're gonna bolt this guy up, and I think we're gonna fire it.
Turn the key. All right,
Try
go for
again.
it.
Wait.
There
Like a Honda.
All right. Here we go, baby. Yeah. Intake.
Is it? Wow, it's so smooth, dude.
I know, it's running very smooth. That's crazy.
It's so smooth.
At least we know the startup tune is right.
I know. It's right up,
dude.
What is that? Woo!
I don't know.
That's the map. Is it?
It's singing, baby. It's singing.
The engine's running 100%. We're gonna make the car now look as good as this thing sounds, so get ready for the next video. We'll see you guys.
Check out our website, shopdiy.com. Get yourself one of these 4 keychains. We actually just added this American dual overhead cam V10 jet tag to the website. We also have a bunch of shirts, hoodies, sweatshirts. But check out shopdiy.com. Get yourself some DIY swag.